Port St. Lucie, Florida, 1977. The first time I read the U.S. Constitution, I was 9 years old. I did not read it by choice. This particular copy was a worn little booklet that my mother had angrily thrust into my hands. Mama was an oncology nurse, not a legal scholar, but she always had a heart for the downtrodden and a concomitant fury at bullies. The occasion for her anger that day was my compliance with what she viewed to be unconstitutional questioning by an agent of the state. That's how she characterized it, but in fairness, I should note that this agent of the state was an animal control officer. I had narrowly beaten him in a race to snatch hold of my dog Chrissy, I got her on Christmas Day, who had once again released herself on her own recognizance from our backyard. When I knelt with my arms wrapped around Chrissy's chest to keep the animal control officer from dragging her away, he whipped out a clipboard and started firing questions at me. What was my name? Where did I live? What were my parents' names? I dutifully answered because he was a uniformed adult holding what appeared to be an official clipboard. His interrogation was cut short, however, by my red-headed mother, who advanced on him with a barrage of righteous speechifying that made Clarence Darrow look like a mime. Chrissy and I stood behind Mama as her invective drove the agent of the state back into his truck and out of our subdivision. I never saw him on our streets again. I have never been sprung from wrongful imprisonment by an attorney, but I imagine it feels something like that. I was pretty well satisfied with how things were sorting themselves out until my mother whirled around and laid into me. You had no business answering that man's questions. Don't you ever tell someone whatever he wants to know just because he works for the government. Most of Mama's lecture, which lasted across the street, through our backyard and into our kitchen, is lost to memory. I can faintly remember phrases that struck me as peculiar at the time, but which became familiar as I grew up around that woman, like agent of the state and fascists, and a host of more colorful phraseology that respect for her memory precludes me from sharing here. At the conclusion of her Jeremiad, Mama yanked open a kitchen drawer, pulled out that booklet, and shoved it into my hands. Here, she said, go to your room and don't come out until you've read the whole thing. Most kids I knew got punished for cussing or skipping school, and their punishments were grounding or getting whipped with a belt. My mother locked me in the room with the U.S. Constitution because I'd sung like a canary to an agent of the state. This, I've come to realize, explains a great many subsequent happenings in my life, up to and including the audiobook you're now listening to. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, Mark Twain wrote in his own booklet, it is time to reform. Twain moderated that view a bit, adding parenthetically, or pause and reflect. Mama was not always one to pause and reflect, but she did teach me a healthy skepticism of officials, experts, and people who otherwise consider themselves to be big deals. Such a posture is practically a hate crime these days, but there was once a time when conservative, libertarian, socialist, anti-establishment, constitution-wielding mothers were recognized as legitimate heirs of American pragmatism.